From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thanks very much, Ollie Barrett. Welcome to Monday's Richie Allen Show. It's a wet and miserable old day, so it is, but it's warm inside. It is November 4th, 2019. This is your Richie Allen Show. Jeff Berwick, the Dollar Vigilante, is my guest. He'll join me a little later on in the programme. I look forward to hearing from you this evening. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter, at Richie Allen Show on Twitter.
Richie Allen.
Yes, indeed it is. Welcome to the programme.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yes, I'm looking forward to catching up with Jeff Berwick. It's been about a year since Jeff was on this programme. And he's made the national news in the US, has Jeff. Because last week, I know many of you will know this, Jeff, by the way, and Luke Rudkowski and others managed to get onto Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean residence, Little St. James Island. And millions of people have watched the video of the guy's adventure. Very important stuff this. What were they doing there? What did they see? What's this all about? Jeff Berwick joins the programme a little bit later on. I'm looking forward to it. So I am. And you know, it's been over a week, but I'm still a bit on the croaky side. But that's all right. We'll live with it. We'll live with it. You'll live with it. You'll put up with it. Is what you'll do. You'll do what you're told, I tells you. Yeah, so Jeff, a bit later on, I'm sure you'll have comments to make. You know how to do that. By now, I reckon. By now. Yes, we're in the middle of fireworks season. Bonfire night tomorrow night. Not good for the doggies. Not going to get into that. Mentioned it earlier on the newspaper review programme, which is still going on, by the way. I still do that. Monday to Thursday, 9:30 on YouTube. It's a bit of a joke. It's not great, but you can watch it, and there are some laughs in it. And it's on youtube.com/Richie Allen Show. You can check it out if you haven't checked it out before. So I won't dwell on the doggies and the fireworks, but I was chastised. And chastened by a couple of comments today saying, Richie, people with autism, very young children, and people with disabilities are also wound up by the fireworks. Yes, but I don't go for a walk in the mornings with a old person or a disabled person or somebody with autism. You see what I mean? Not that I don't have any empathy, but I hear you. Yes, we'll have another week or two of it and then it'll die away till New Year's Eve. Now, I'm going to start off with this today. For decades and decades, and throughout my childhood, we'd sit down at home in Ireland, in Waterford City, in Ballybeg, on a Friday night, and we'd wait for the 9 o'clock news to finish, because when the 9 o'clock news finished on a Friday night, this is what you were waiting for.
Ladies and gentlemen, to whom it concerns, it's The Late Late Show. And here is your host, Gay Byrne.
Thank you.
Yeah, the brilliant Gay Byrne. Legend is overused, isn't it? Legend, it's become... Well, it's lost its meaning now because we use it to describe everything that we like. Oh, that's legendary. He's a legend, she's a legend. It's overused. Gay Byrne is a legend. He died today, Gay Byrne, aged 85 years old. And he'd been sick for a few years. I think he was diagnosed with prostate cancer a couple of years ago. And I think it spread to other parts of his body. And he died at home, surrounded by his family and his best friends. Now, he presented The Late Late Show in Ireland from its premiere back in 1962 till he retired in May 1999. And Irish people will remember many of the programmes he presented, not just on television, The Late Late Show, the longest running television chat show of all time. Not just that, but also his radio show, the GB show, the Gay Byrne radio show on RTE Radio 1. I'll never forget the day he retired from The Late Late Show. Watching it, he was presented, was gay with a Harley Davidson motorbike by Larry Mullen Jr. of U2 and Bono of U2. How do you describe Gay Byrne to somebody who's not Irish or English? Because the Late Late Show used to go out on Channel 4 television here in the UK at sometimes, and at other times it went out on ITV. Well, I'm going to tell you this, and I am a bit subjective, but you know, we think of Dick Cavett, we think of Johnny Carson, Michael Parkinson, Jay Leno, Barbara Walters. I could be here all day long. None of them could hold a candle to Gay Byrne, and I mean that because of his versatility. It didn't matter who he was speaking to, whether it was a politician, whether it was a head of state, whether it was a musician, a comedian, an actor, an actress. He was brilliant. And if I ever interviewed him, why was he brilliant, Richie? You can't just say that. You can't say that. What do you mean? Well, if I'd ever interviewed him, and I met him one time, only once, and I didn't speak to him, sadly. I was in the Berkeley Court Hotel many years ago, having a drink the night before Ireland played Croatia. So it's going back years and years and years. And midweek game, and he was in there meeting a friend, and he was at the bar, and I said hello to him, and he was a gentleman, and that was all really. But I was in awe of him. Irish broadcasters, producers, would-be presenters, journalists were in absolute awe of the man. I'd have said to him, if I'd ever met him, I would have said how he felt about the kind of deferential approach today's interviewers take when they are speaking with celebrities and politicians, because he didn't have that deferential approach. And I don't think any broadcaster worth his or her salt when interviewing people, whether it's just a famous person for music or football or tennis or films, or whether it's a politician, you shouldn't be deferential. You're there to ask questions. And he used to do that. So it began in 1962. Apparently it was only going to be for a short time. I've been digging into the history of the Late Late Show today, much of which I knew because I'm an Irishman and we grew up with the programme. But it was given a short slot in 62 in the summer, and it went on to become the world's longest running chat show, as far as I know. And why was it important? Because before it was on air in Ireland, you have to imagine what Ireland was like in the 1960s. And I can only go on what I've been told because I was born in 1974. But even in 74, Ireland was a very sheltered place. Very sheltered. This wonderful island on the west of Europe, kind of isolated from Europe, very sheltered place. And his programme, the Late Late Show television programme and the radio programme, gave an opportunity for people to talk about things which were just not spoken about in Ireland. Things you didn't speak about. You didn't speak about them at home, and you certainly didn't speak about them in the pub. They were just unsayable things, unspeakable things. Like what, Richie? Well, like just how powerful the Catholic Church was in Ireland, for example. Homosexuality, for example. Divorce, amazingly, for example. Abortion. And later on, of course, AIDS and many subjects that we just weren't comfortable with, you know, when talking about. And he was a pioneer. And I think he'll forever be entwined or intertwined with the, I don't want to say a political or sexual revolution, but a cultural revolution in Ireland. Kind of Ireland emerging into the 20th century, into the 21st century. He'll always be associated with it. He was our chat show host. It was our television programme. And the entire country watched it. That's another thing, by the way. Because of the advent of social media now, YouTube, podcasting, we don't have television programmes anymore where the nation basically watches all together. You know, streets and street corners would have been empty in every county, in every highway and byway of Ireland on Friday night at 9:30 to watch the Late Late Show, to see who was going to be on it and what was going to be discussed. Great guy, Gay Byrne, a real genius. And, you know, I think back to some of the episodes of the Late Late Show, which meant a lot to me. As an Irish Republican, I was 20 years of age when Gay interviewed Gerry Adams, the former president of Sinn Féin. And Gerry Adams had, for a long time, not been heard on television in the UK or in Ireland because there was a ban. There was a media ban on Sinn Féin speaking. We had this ludicrous, funny but not really funny, kind of spooky law where Gerry Adams could be interviewed, but then his voice would be dropped out of the final edit and an actor would portray Gerry Adams' voice. It was ludicrous. But anyway, things began to change politically in the north of Ireland. And Gay interviewed Gerry Adams. And sadly for Gay at the time, didn't shake hands with Gerry Adams when he entered stage left. Which was a bit silly. He could be a bit silly, Gay, like all geniuses. They're not perfect. Silly because he went on to do an astoundingly good interview with Gerry Adams. And I wouldn't have been a fan of Gerry Adams even though I was a Republican and a Sinn Féin supporter. I've never been a great fan of Adams, personally. But of course it was a big deal for Republicans to see Gerry Adams on television. Gay did a brilliant job of doing the interview, but probably regretted not shaking his hand when he came on the stage. And another time he had one of these profound, kind of amazing media moments. Again, the likes of which you just wouldn't ever see today. Because television programmes are so sanitised now, they're so careful, they're so carefully produced, and all manner of tests are done before a member of the public gets anywhere near the air. But many years ago, Gay, live on air, the nation watching, rang a woman down the country to tell her that she'd won the car. Right? There was a car, and it was a postal quiz, famous for postal quizzes, was the Late Late Show. And he rang up this lady after pulling her name out of the hat, which contained her phone number on it. And Gay says, "Congratulations, you've won the car." But the woman was in a bit of a state because she'd only just learned the evening before that her daughter had been killed in a car accident. She'd been knocked down by a car. And the way he handled that, Gay Byrne, on live television, chatting with the woman about her grief and how she was coping and was she okay, and he kind of became oblivious to the cameras, to the studio engineers, the floor managers, the audience, and he chatted with her. He was amazing. And he died aged 85 today, and yeah, I'm a bit sad about that. Because when I started working radio in 1997, 1998, his name would often be mentioned by presenters in a very reverent, kind of reverently mentioned as the granddaddy, as the godfather of broadcasting, as the guy who wrote the way, paved the way, and showed everybody else how it should be done. This is how you should conduct yourself when you're on air. This is the responsibility you have. And he was brilliant. He was also anti-European Union, was Gay. And I suppose that's another reason for me to like him. Brilliant man, died aged 85 today. Aryesh De Garev on him, Gay Byrne. Gabriel Byrne, in case you're wondering. Gay for short. There was a lovely episode many years ago when the boxer Frank Bruno, another lovely man whom I did meet in the past. Yeah, I'm not dropping names, but I did meet Big Frank. Lovely, lovely situation when Frank came on the programme, and Frank was really tickled by the fact that Gay was known as Gay. He couldn't get his head around it, Frank. And he's got that wonderful laugh, Frank Bruno, that very infectious, that very famous laugh. And every time he said Gay, he laughed. And Gay Byrne was brilliant with it, and it was a brilliant interview. Right, let's move on. Yeah, Gay Byrne. Right. The UK's terrorist threat level has been downgraded from severe to substantial, according to the Home Office. How many times have we talked about this over the year? The spectre of living our lives like this. There is a terror threat chart, and there are different colours on the chart, and we're supposed to keep an eye on it like we keep an eye on the weather. Better not go out today. Why not, Sam? Well, the threat level is at green. What does green mean? It means severe. There's a very good chance something's going to happen. Let's stay indoors then and play hangman or play noughts and crosses. It's crazy. Fear, 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 fear. That's why they brought it in. It came in post September the 11th. The UK government copied the American government, which has a similar threat level chart. It's madness. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, said we're still at a high level of threat, and an attack could occur without further warning. We have been told today that terrorism remains a direct and immediate risk to life. Madness. Speaking of terrorism, I heard the mother of all non-stories today, dear listener. What a non-story this was. BBC, big news flash today. Joe Swinson confirms suspect package sent to office. Suspect package sent to office. Serious, right? Serious business, right? Suspect packages. So a spokesperson for Swinson told the BBC, I can confirm that a suspect package was this morning delivered to Joe Swinson's parliamentary office. The staff immediately notified the police, who attended, and the police have now assessed the package as non-suspicious.
What kind of fuckery is this?
What? Hang on a second now. So you tip off the media that you had a suspect package, the staff identified it, but then the police came along and said, no, it's not suspicious at all. Non-story. But run for a couple of hours this morning. Love to see what the package looked like. Nobody's put any photographs of it online. At least none that I've seen yet. Anyway, speaking of Joe Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, she's threatening to use the courts to force ITV to include her in its pre-election leaders debate. Little fishwife, eh? Eh? Hysterical. Okay. The Liberal Democrats are not even the third biggest party in the country, but she's a woman, goddammit, and she's the only party leader that is a woman, goddammit. And here she is outside of Parliament today, flanked by a shed load of sisters doing it for themselves.
And it is so important that in 2019, that our Parliament and our politics really represents the country that we are here to serve. And it is so important that that is the message that is sent. And I am delighted to lead a party that has 50-50 men and women MPs. And it is why we are determined that the debates that take place, the TV debates about who will be the next Prime Minister of our country, cannot and should not exclude the only woman leader who is able to be the next Prime Minister. Because I stand as a candidate to be Prime Minister, and as the leader of the biggest and strongest party of Remain, it is a nonsense to suggest that these debates should go ahead, Leave versus Leave, with no voice for Remain whatsoever. The voice of the millions of people who voted to Remain, who want to stop Brexit and stay in the European Union, must be heard in those leaders' debates. And so as Liberal Democrats, we will take any action required to make sure that that voice of Remain is represented in those debates. We are taking legal advice and we will pursue legal avenues if ITV do not change their format.
Yeah, you go, girl. Did you hear that guy screaming in the background, screaming loudly about stopping Brexit? He's been there for weeks and months. You know who he is. Imagine if you went down there with a megaphone, or even just using your own lungs, your own chest, your own voice. Imagine you were down there for months screaming about Palestine and the crimes of the State of Israel. How long do you think it'd last? On this story, Swinson's Liberal Democrat colleague Chuka Munna was on Talk Radio with Julia Hartley-Brewer earlier. Brewer says to him, she says, get real, pal. Swinson isn't a credible candidate for Prime Minister in terms of the public support.
Your shadow cabinet meetings, don't tell me you're sitting there going, yeah, so when Joe Swinson is Prime Minister, I mean, let's be realistic about this. Your party, you may well hold the balance of power at the next, after the next election if there is a hung parliament. But the TV leadership debate between prospective Prime Ministers, that can only be between people who will be Prime Minister as opposed to someone who might... Joe Swinson isn't going to be the next Prime Minister, is she?
But that is just wrong. That is a misunderstanding of the Ofcom rules. And as you just said, well, look, you may well hold the balance of power. I'd say that in and of itself is an argument to have the leader of the Liberal Democrats. But
has any of this got anything to do with her being a woman? Because I've never heard Joe Swinson. I've never heard Nicola Sturgeon, or Theresa May ever play the woman card the way Joe Swinson does.
Nicola, I believe she has actually, and the last time that there was a dispute around this, the SNP threatened to injunct the broadcaster concerned, and they therefore changed.
But it wasn't because Nicola Sturgeon was a woman.
It was part of the argument that the SNP made at the time. I forget which election it was. I can't remember whether it was 2015 or 2017. Forgive me.
There've been a lot
of them. It was definitely part of the argument.
Yeah. Now the Brexit Party is going after disgruntled Labour voters in the north. Remember, there is a general election scheduled for December 12th, and the campaigning has begun in earnest. And the Brexit Party is going after Labour voters who are cheesed off because 5 million of them voted to leave. Now, Catweasel and his Muppet pals have betrayed them, even though Catweasel is deep down, of course, totally opposed to UK membership. Anyway, here's Brexit Party Chairman Richard Tice speaking with Gay Byrne on Gay Byrne at Breakfast on Sky News.
Where there's strong Leave majorities, they know that actually the Labour Party have completely betrayed them from their 2017 promise, and also the Conservative Party, their Brexit at the moment, it looks like Brexit, but it's not Brexit.
Okay, tell me which seats you're targeting particularly. North East, 58% voted to leave.
So
what are you looking
in the
at
particular
there?
areas for us,
Yeah.
key areas is South Wales,
Yeah.
the Midlands, North Midlands, and the North and the North East
Which
are
particular
key
seats
targets.
there?
Well, as I say, there's
Sunderland, South 61% leave, South Tyneside 62%
there's over 100.
leave.
There are over 100 seats across those three regions where we believe that have never been Conservative.
Go on,
for
tell me
example.
some of them.
Well, I'll just say there's over 100 seats that have never been Conservative in 100 years. So you take those ones in and around the North East, for example, around Middlesbrough, Sedgefield, around there. You go into the North Midlands, around Bolsover, Dennis Skinner's seat, Ashfield around there.
Okay.
You go down into South Wales. All of these areas are key targets where the Labour voters feel deeply betrayed. They voted leave, they expected it to be done. It hasn't been. But, they don't trust Boris Johnson to get this done. And that's our anxiety because, we're out campaigning. We're going on the road from tomorrow. And we're going to be setting a very clear stall. There are massive flaws and pitfalls in this agreement which could go on forever and ever.
Chairman of the Brexit Party, Richard Tice there. We'll leave the election coverage for now. Back with you in 60 seconds. This is your Richie Allen Show. Monday, November 4th, 2019. The time is approaching 25 minutes past the hour.
Renowned healer Mark Byersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Byersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbyersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
Right, welcome back to the programme. Lots to get through between now and Jeff Berwick. Jeff will be on the programme around about the top of the hour. You do not want to miss that. The Dollar Vigilante and his excursion to Epstein's Island, Pedo Island as they've called it. Don't want to miss that. Coming up a bit later on. There's loads of woke stuff in the press today. Loads of woke. We love woke stuff. We love it. We love it. We love it. There were tears and there was virtue signalling over the weekend. Why? Well, apparently two men danced together on Strictly Come Dancing, making history on that particular show by being the first male couple to dance. It's Johannes Radibi and his fellow professional Graziano Di Prima, and they performed a dance to a song by Emily Sandé on Sunday evening yesterday, and viewers were moved to tears, some of them, as the series made history. People tweeting things like, "My heart is going to burst." Wonderful opportunity for a bit of virtue signal to the herd that your thinking is in the right place. Yes, this is brilliant. This is extraordinary. This is profound. This is wonderful. It's neither or. Either or. It's just two blokes dancing. But everybody is woke these days. There were some negative comments, though. Some viewers suggesting that ratings were likely to drop as a result of the inclusion of same-sex dancing. I doubt it very much. People don't care, you see. That's the irony of ramming down people's throats. The notion that they must think a certain way about something. That is the great irony. People actually don't care. I've been out and about at events and two men have been dancing together near me and I couldn't give a shite. Doesn't bother me. Why would it? But yeah, everybody's woke. Quick, there are two men dancing on BBC One. Switch over. Get your phone out and tweet that it is lovely. Do it quickly. Wow. And Charlize Theron, the actress. This pisses me off because Charlize Theron's a very good actress. Oh, she's very capable. Very good Oscar-winning actress. Played Aileen Wuornos, didn't she? The serial killer. And done a damn good job of it with Christina Ricci, another brilliant actress. But Charlize, god damn it, I would have thought she was old enough to know better than to just give in to these stupid questions. She was asked about gender-neutral categories at awards ceremonies, and she took the bait, and she said, I hope it happens soon. Do they even think about these things? Or are they so pampered that they don't have any time to think about the implications? The implications for gender, for feminism, for the female, for the male. Does it occur to them? No, quick, give the right answer. Let's hope soon that we have gender-neutral categories. Now, Charlize is raising her eldest child as a girl. Her eldest child was born male, but identifies as a girl. It's Jackson, born male, identifies as a girl, and the child is only 7, so it can't be easy. There were some photographs online, weren't there, of young Jackson wearing dresses, and Charlize is having to deal with that. So yeah, fair, it can't be easy, that. We know this. So gender-neutral categories then. I wonder, is it the case now that nobody would take this on, nobody? Well, the Richie Allen entertainment correspondent, Roger Fallon, asked the legendary Saul Fordian actor Brian Cox for a response. So, Brian, gender-neutral categories, what do you think?
Fuck off.
All right. What was that, Brian?
Fuck off.
Say what you mean, man. That's what I say too. Fuck off. It's madness. Let's talk about something a bit more serious than gender-neutral categories at awards shows. Even though gender-neutral categories at awards shows is serious, I suppose. Like to talk about money, don't I? Don't we? We like to talk about money, wealth creation, the creation of money and the responsibility of it, where it lies, where it resides. Well, I came across an interesting man called Matthias. They said Weik. It's spelled W-E-I-K. He's a German economist and author. And he appeared on a very interesting RT program called Renegade, which I'm sure you've seen. It's a good program. Interesting subjects talked about there. So Matthias Weik, he's an economist, and he was on to talk about quantitative easing, how the printing of money by central banks has screwed Europe, basically, particularly the southern states. What's quantitative easing, Richie? Well, it's a policy whereby a central bank basically buys government bonds, right, or other government securities, and allows the government then to increase the supply of money in the population. Right? Right. Amazing, isn't it? You put up some collateral and we'll let you print money, which is what we normally do. Well, we'll do it and we'll give it to you. This is very interesting stuff. The guy is interesting because he gets some of it, but not all of it. German economist and author Matthias Weik on RT Renegade. Hark up, this is good stuff.
What we're doing now in the Eurozone is we try to solve a problem by printing money. We gained great 10 years, but we did not solve the problem. We just printed it in the future. And at the end of the day, it won't work out. We see now a massive bubble in the real estate market in Germany. We see a massive bubble globally at the stock market. And we see a massive government bubble. And that is the mother of all bubbles. And if that government bond bubble bursts, we are all in big problems.
When QE was first thought about, just after the 2008 crisis, the idea was that it would buy time so policymakers would be able to fix structural problems. Have any of those structural problems been fixed, or have we just kicked the can? When I say we, the ECB, the Bank of England, the central banks, have they just kicked the can down the road?
Yes, they did, and the problem is our politicians did not solve the problem, neither in Britain nor in Japan or in the US or in the Eurozone. We just increased the problem by printing more money, more debt, and that won't work out in the long run. We didn't solve a single problem. The banks are still big. The economy is really weak in Southern Europe. Germany is strong, but the others are weak. We've got far too low interest rates for Germany, far too high for Italy and Greece, and that won't work out.
Yeah. So he knows what's happening, but he doesn't know, or doesn't seem to know, or doesn't seem to want to go there in terms of explaining who is behind it and why. But he's not bad. Money goes to the super rich and everyone else is screwed, he says.
We always have to look who's getting wealthier. And if you look the rich and the super rich, they get wealthier and wealthier. And the poor and the hardworking get poorer and poorer. So of all those wealth, what we are printing at the moment, that doesn't go down to the major public. Let's go to German capital, Berlin. The rent is increasing and increasing. Now the people are spending around 50% of their income just on rent.
Yeah.
So it's hard to live. So they definitely do not become richer. And one of the results of the ECB policy is that the property prices go through the roof. And some people get incredibly rich, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of people don't benefit of this crazy policy.
And this crazy policy, this guy's got a book out. He must know what's going on. He must know that banks do not have money and that they create money out of thin air, making them the most powerful institutions on planet Earth. He must know this. This is what cheeses me off. I've had this out on the programme with many economists. You know, and of course that policy of loaning people into debt that they cannot repay, and then in lieu of the debt that they cannot repay, taking real wealth like land and property. Surely it must occur to him that that's the whole point of the exercise in the beginning. To begin with. That's it. That's the whole bloody thing. The whole caboodle right there. Massive institutions. Some of them invisible. Some of them not known to people. Get to issue money. And they don't have any. But they get to say, right, here you go. Click of the fingers. There's 100 million quid for you. Now you've got to pay it back to us at 6% interest. He must know this. He must do. And the inevitable consequences of such a policy. Anyway, the presenter asks them about the baby boomers retiring and the economic impact of it going forward. His answer is interesting, particularly to those of my listeners who are savvy when it comes to these issues and who talk or look at or explore the possibilities of future economic crashes. So if you understand this, and the fact that each financial crash every 7 or 8 years is worse than the one preceding it, listen to what he says next. He's asked by the presenter about the baby boomers retiring.
We could have a thing which we've called the silver tsunami. Baby boomers, that generation retiring, coming out of work and then becoming dependent, start drawing down pensions, wanting downsize houses, want to get out of as much economic activity as they've been in. What happens then?
I think it won't even last that long. We should better ask not what happens when the older people act. What happens if the younger people see, like in Spain, in Italy, in Greece, that they don't have a future and they go on the streets? We've burned now like a whole entire generation in Southern Europe for the Euro project. And it's just a matter of time that those people won't cope with it anymore. And I think that will happen when the next recession will come. And the next recession will come probably in winter. We are already
in winter. This year, he says. So the next recession, European recession, is going to happen in winter, he says. And then he says, he explains why. And here he explains why, because he says that it's already happening in Germany.
We are already in some areas in Germany in a recession, like the leading industry is the car industry. And if you look at the numbers there, they don't look good. And the numbers in China for the car industry don't look good as well. So Germany will go in a recession. If the world economic export champion will go in a recession, the Eurozone will suffer. Because if the money is not flowing from Germany anymore to Brussels, the European Union will have serious problems.
What then does the European Union look like, just say 3, 5, 10 years out from now, in your opinion?
For me, first important thing to say is, for me, Europe is the greatest continent. I'm pro-Europe. But if the people always say, if the euro fails, Europe fails, like Angela Merkel said, that's nonsense. Europe is much more than the European Union. I don't see a future for the European Union as it is now. I think we need a strong economic union, but the political union won't work out. We have to release the debt for all the southern countries like Greece, like Italy, like Spain. They will never, ever pay their debt back.
They're not meant to pay it back. And he must know this. It's not about the debt. They don't want the money because it's invisible. It doesn't mean anything. It's money that doesn't exist. It's not what they want. They want to destroy the countries. Socially, politically, culturally destroy the countries and then seize everything in those countries that's worth anything. Property, land, water. I know you've heard me sing this song many a time, but forget about chemtrails, which is massively important. Forget about false flag terror, which is hugely important. This is the issue by which you can reach your skeptical friends and neighbours. Money. This is how it works. This is the foundation on which the House of Cards is built. He must know this. They'll never release Greece, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Hungary, Ireland from the bondage, from the debt that doesn't exist. When you've got somebody in debt up to their eyeballs, whether it's a person, whether it's a state, they are yours forevermore to do that which you want to do with. He must get this.
Back. And to keep the European idea living, then we have to support them, like Germany got supported with a Marshall Plan after the Second World War. But if we keep it like this, more and more populists and nationalists will gain into power. And when the recession will be hard in Italy and France, I'm pretty sure the next election will be absolute anti-EU parties. And then we've got different problems to solve that we can think about it at the moment.
Well, you see, again, he doesn't get it. Yes, you probably will see the continued growth of anti-European Union populist right-wing parties. Yes, but you must understand that those who create wealth couldn't give a rat's backside whether it's right-wing, left-wing, centrist. They don't care, do they? 19 minutes to the top of the hour. Going to take a musical interlude. When we come back, I'm reading your comments because plenty of comments to read there are. Monday's programme, November 4th, 2019. I'm Richie Allen. How you doing? Are you well? Jeff Berwick joins the programme in about 20 minutes' time. The dollar vigilante himself. This is madness. And this is madness, by the way. When will they get it? When will they get it? When will they watch Sky News or Channel 4? When will they ask themselves out loud in their living rooms, who do we owe this money to? Who? How could the government owe money? When will they ask the question? Because when they do, it's the beginning of the end for the elite. It really is. Honest to God, I'm sick of it. It's the one thing I talk about with friends when they ask me, when they want to know because I don't volunteer. I talk to them about this. How does money come into being? Who creates it? Right? And what gives them the right to create it? To be appointed as the banker in this global game of Monopoly. Who gave them the right? Is their money backed up by assets like gold and silver and precious metals? No, it ain't. Shit, what does that mean then? Well, it basically means that you've got a bunch of gangsters controlling planet Earth. Banksters, gangsters, because they get to decide who gets money, when and where, and who doesn't get money. They also get to decide if you get a house or not. And pretend to give you money. Here you are. Here's 200 grand or 100 grand or 150 grand or 500 grand. There you are. They haven't given you anything. It's an illusion. Haven't loaned you anything. Their stock hasn't depreciated by the sum total of the loan given to you to buy your house. Do you fucking understand this? It's the most important thing that you must understand before you can even begin to look at the global conspiracy. You have to understand this. Really, Richie? Yes. When they give you £100,000, £100,000, it doesn't mean that their own number has gone down by 100,000 because they invented that out of thin air. I'd love to be able to loan money out of thin air and call it back in with interest. Fractional reserve banking. Educate yourselves, your friends, your neighbours. That's the one thing they won't roll their eyes at and say, oh, crazy tinfoil hat. It's a fact. Surely that economist knows that. Matthias Weich, he must know. Cartoon Drunk says he does get it. He knows it, but he is profiting from the system personally himself, financially. That's why he's not being brutally honest, says Cartoon Drunk. That's one interpretation. Hi to Faisal. Hi to David, who tweets, the system is set up like musical chairs. We are always the one out, as they are playing the music and competing in the game. The house always wins. Ricky says we're heading for another depression like the 1930s. Sooty's Rehab tweets, and it's a good one. How about we start digging into how many members of Parliament have huge property to rent portfolios? How many of them have multiple properties that they rent out? Maybe a reason they love mass migration, says Sooty's Rehab, in order to keep the prices up. Hi to Ronan Morley. How you doing, Ronan? We should have time to get into privacy coins and Monero with Jeff. It's not what he's on to talk about, but we'll have plenty of time. I'm sure we'll get to that, mate. I'll do my best anyway. Hi to Mwinga. Thanks for the story, the link to the story about Charlize Theron, the South African actress whose son is identifying as a girl. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on then, because it is 13 minutes to the top of the hour. One or two more stories to get into, and then we'll get Jeff on the line from Acapulco. You might have been reading about this in recent days. John Legend, successful artist, very successful. He has reworked the Christmas classic Baby It's Cold Outside. Dean Martin, remember? And then in the 90s, Tom Jones, I think. But Dean Martin. Now, it's been announced recently that Legend has recorded a new version of this, again, very famous Christmas tune. And his partner in the song, his singing partner, is Kelly Clarkson. And they have put new lyrics into the song. New lyrics. John Legend has put new lyrics in there. Lyrics with a newfound sensitivity. So again, it's very woke. It's very, very woke. Because snowflakes, boom, 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 bish, Christmas, snowflakes. Snowflakes have been criticising the song now for some years. It was written by Frank Loesser, or Leeser, or Loesser. And snowflakes have long been pissed off by the lyrics, which they have claimed are predatory. Right? Because he keeps asking the girl, what's the sense in hurting my pride, and baby don't hold out, and all of that. Right. So it features the woman of the song telling her date repeatedly, I can't stay, with the man pressuring her to spend the night. She sings, say what's in this drink, which really pisses off the snowflakes. The implication being that he's put a little Mickey into her drink. But John Legend and Kelly Clarkson are reinventing it for the Me Too era. The new lyrics here, Kelly Clarkson sing, what will my friends think? With Legend replying, I think they should rejoice. Kelly sings, if I have one more drink, with John singing, it's your body and your choice. Marvellous. This morning on Good Morning Britain, Susanna Reid and Piers Morgan, they had two legendary songstresses. They had Sheila Ferguson and Ruby Turner, and they had a different point of view on this. You'll hear Sheila Ferguson first.
This song has nothing to do with the Me Too movement. Nothing whatsoever. There are so many salacious, disgusting songs and lyrics out there that they could have redone or written their own. I rate them both as artists. I never criticize artists imperfect.
I agree. Why isn't John Legend rewriting half these rap lyrics?
I thought it was a gimmick.
Which are the most graphically, sexually
I hate to agree with you, for change,
lyrics.
but yes.
Yeah, but why isn't he choosing them?
Because he's not trying to clean up
I thought it was a gimmick.
He is trying to clean up music.
No.
He wants to perform this
what's
particular
the point
song.
in messing
I'm
up?
very happy for him what he wants to choose. But he's targeting Dean Martin and a very innocent Christmas song. He's not targeting the rap community.
That's right.
Because he knows he would get
This
a backlash.
is one mighty big industry. You know, you got to be sensible here.
Have you read rap lyrics to some of these new songs?
Yes.
My dear, some of them make more than your head.
outrageous.
I am aware of all.
Where's John Legend with that?
John Legend is not on a mission to rewrite
John
rap
Legend is
music.
literally on a mission to rewrite great songs.
No, he better
Literally,
not
that's what
be.
he's
He
doing.
wants to rewrite one song.
John Legend has literally rewritten one of the greatest Christmas songs of all time to make it woke. But he won't touch the rap stuff because they're his mates.
That's not his
and he would
mission.
get a backlash. And that's what this is about.
Piers Morgan will get old quick, won't he? That act, that domineering, bullying act of constantly talking over his guests, speaking more than his guests speak, is going to get old very quickly, isn't it? What an awful arsehole he is, Morgan. But anyway, it's an interesting story that, you know, that's a throwaway story, entertainment story. No, it isn't. Seeing it all the time. Chubby Brown, Swansea, wasn't it? The comedian. Chubby's act doesn't represent our values. He's a comedian. And when that sort of thing can happen, and it can happen easily with little resistance, art is in serious danger. The ability or the right of an artist to express him or herself as they feel, as they choose, through their music, through their verse, through their acting, through their comedy, is under serious threat. It's mad, is what it is. A Conservative general election candidate has apologised for a Facebook post going back some years. Told you about this. This is serious, this. Again, it's a nice opportunity to remind you. Listen, if you're going for a job, delete your Twitter. Delete your Facebook. Right? This is Francesca O'Brien. It's a great name. Francesca O'Brien. She's a Tory candidate for the Gower seat in the forthcoming election. And going back 5.5 years, she made a comment on Twitter. Excuse me. She made a comment on Facebook about the television programme Benefit Street. Now, Channel 4 ran a programme called Benefit Street back in 2013, 2014. And it focused on a community where people didn't have very much and where they relied on state assistance. The programme was a bit like Marmite. A lot of people thought it was good and it reflected favourably on the participants. Other people thought that it put the participants, it portrayed them in a bad light. People who depend on the state for their money, effectively. So during this programme, this woman put a comment on Facebook suggesting that the people on Benefit Street needed putting down. Bit harsh. But these off-the-cuff remarks have come back to bite her in the arse. There's a growing movement now today, and it will carry on this week, to have the Conservative Party delist the woman and take her off the ticket there. Yeah. And I'll tell you this, I won't mention any names, but in the last week, I had a chat with a friend of mine in the last week, and my friend is an employer, and he employs quite a few people. And while he wouldn't have a high turnover of staff, he does need to recruit fairly often. Not a high turnover, but often enough he'll need to get some people in. And I asked him, so I did. I said to him, when you recruit, do you go through the social media history of the prospective candidates. And without missing a beat, he said, yes. And I said, that's maybe a bit unfair, no? And he said, well, I can learn a lot by going through the social media account. And he said, it's put out there, Richie. It's volunteered. Now, he said, I don't go looking at one post that might not portray the person in a good light and say, well, that's it. I'm disqualifying him or her from the process. I wouldn't be that fickle, he said. I would look at one tweet that might be a bit harsh, a bit hostile, but I would go through a lot more to kind of get an aggregate score. And I said, wow. And then I said to him, what about coming across tweets by your prospective candidates? Tweets about the trans issue, whereby the candidate has tweeted maybe a year ago, I don't think that trans people should be able to self-identify, or I don't believe that trans people should use any other bathroom except the one that corresponds with their birth sex. And what about if the candidate said, I don't believe in global warming? And my friend just grinned at me. And he said, I know you won't betray me, said my friend, by, mentioning me on air. And I will be honest with you. He said, I'd have to think very hard about that. So I'm telling you, dear listener, if application for a job is in your very near future, get to Twitter, get to Facebook, and sanitize the ever-living bejesus out of your account. But then another friend of mine said to me recently, I won't mention her name, she said to me that after she went for a job and after she'd closed her social media account, that drew suspicion in the face-to-face interview because her prospective boss, her potential boss, was very interested in why she didn't have a social media account. So you can't win. Right? David Stanford says, if you don't put your mug on the profile, they can't prove it's you. Yes, but like my female friend said, now if you don't have a social media account that is clearly identifiable as yours, it draws suspicion from your would-be boss. How interesting. How interesting, eh? Hi to Patricia in Zurich in Switzerland. How you doing, Patricia? In the meantime, Richie, while these a-holes are arguing over a song, yesterday Israeli forces used over 20 tear gas and concussion grenades, 5 live ammunition, targeting and terrorising Palestinian children at Salameh School in Hebron. How do you pronounce that? Salameh School in Hebron, southern West Bank. Thanks, Patricia. It is a daily occurrence. And we talk about it on this programme. Not a whisper on The Guardian or The Independent or the BBC. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Hi to John Byrne. What will my friends think if I have the flu vaccine, says John. It's your body, your choice, says John. Nice to hear from you, John. This is Monday's Richie Allen Show. We're going to take some music from Queen and from David Bowie. And when we come back from that, more of your comments. And we'll get Jeff Berwick on the line from Acapulco, eh? How romantic is that? How exotic is Acapulco? Terrific tune, this. Keep the comments coming in. It's that Richie Allen Show on Twitter. And if you're just joining the programme, you're very welcome to it. Yeah, Queen and Bowie, or Bowie, and Under Pressure on the Richie Allen Show. Going to take the headlines now from FSN. Any news there, Ollie?
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. A car rationing system is in force in Delhi with air pollution at dangerous levels. UK MPs are electing a new Speaker of the House of Commons for the first time in over a decade. The Nigerian Air Force says it's destroyed the hideout of an Islamic State offshoot in Borno, and tens of thousands of people in the southwest of France have been without power on Monday after Storm Amelie blasted the region.
Thanks very much, Ollie. It's coming up for 3 minutes past 6, so it is November 4th, 2019. This is your Richie Allen Show, Europe's most listened to independent radio show. So it is. Good to be with you live right now on Fab Radio 2 in the great city of Manchester, triggerwarning.tv, my website, of course, TuneIn Radio, the TuneIn Radio app, and the programme is archived on Podomatic, Spotify, iTunes, and the Truth Seeker app. Do check out the Truth Seeker app. You can download it for free. And you get lots of very interesting podcasts by content creators around the world. Independent media. Independent news. There's nothing like it, god damn it. I'll be back with you in 30 seconds. Jeff Berwick is standing by. Top man is Jeff. We'll be with him in about a minute's time.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Lovely stuff, right? And if you've got something you'd like me to put to Jeff Berwick, you need only do it through Twitter. I won't tell you what the Twitter handle is, because you know it by now. Now, I wanted to get into something today. I was telling Jean Ann. Jean Ann is my sounding board. It's good to have a sounding board. It's good to have a genius. It's good to know a genius. You can run things by her. And I wanted to get into a subject today, and I've not got time to do it, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. It's a subject I'm very passionate about, and I'm going to talk to you about it tomorrow. I'm going to give you a little mini lecture tomorrow. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting. But I'm going to talk to you about false dilemma, binary choice tomorrow. And something I'm fascinated by as, you know, somebody who's been around a long time and has been an observer of the media for a very long time. We're going to talk false dilemma and binary choice tomorrow. Now, Jim Fetzer will be back on the Richie Allen Show tomorrow. Jim heard my interview with Kevin Barrett, his longtime friend and collaborator. And this is about Jim losing his defamation case with Lenny Posner, the father of Noah Posner. We're talking, of course, about Sandy Hook, Connecticut. Jim listened to the interview and has demanded, as is his right, that he gets right of reply. And of course he'll get right of reply. He was being invited back anyway to talk about it. So Jim will be on the programme with me tomorrow. So that's tomorrow, Tuesday. You say that in America, don't you? Tuesday. Lunatics, yeah. All right, so let's get Jeff back on the programme because it's just gone 5 minutes past the hour. Monday's show, the beginning of the week. Lots coming up this week. And look forward to your company through the rest of the week. Don't forget the newspaper review programme. It's a nonsense, but it's live every Monday to Thursday at 9:30 on YouTube. It's absolutely crap, but it's fun. It's good crap. Let's welcome back to the show an old friend of ours. I can't believe it's been a year since he was on, or nearly. Brilliant guy. Let me read you this. It's made international news, this. A new video has been released online showing Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean residence, Little St. James Island. The footage was filmed by video podcaster Jeff Berwick of the Dollar Vigilante and journalist Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change, which describes itself as a non-partisan independent media outlet, which it is. Jeff and Luke said they managed to sneak into the famous hideaway in the US Virgin Islands after convincing a boat captain to drop them off at the property for 5 seconds. They filmed and wandered around and investigated for 30 minutes before they had to flee because staff began to chase them. This is fascinating stuff. They didn't give Jeff much of an introduction in the article. He's far more than a podcaster, is Jeff Berwick. You know that. He's a very smart guy. He's an author, an investor, a broker, a broadcaster. He runs the outstanding Anarchapulco conference every year from Acapulco in Mexico, usually around February time. You can read all about him. Investor, of course, and his investment recommendations far more often than not turn out to be very good advice. You can read about him. It's dollarvigilante.com. Jeff Berwick, welcome back. How you doing?
Thank you, Richie.
It's great
to
have you.
How you doing?
I'm very well. Tell us about this island adventure excursion. Whose idea was it and what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, it was Luke Rudkowski's idea. We were actually in the Caribbean on a friend's plane. A friend, Joby Weeks, had a small prop plane, and he invited us to come along to go to about 10 different countries in about 2 weeks. And so that was great. And we were starting to get near the Virgin Islands, and Luke brought it up. He said, well, if we go to the Virgin Islands, we have to try to get on Epstein Island. And so we began putting together some ideas. We started talking to some boat captains. Pretty much everyone we talked to said they wouldn't go to the island. They said it was too dangerous, that sort of a thing. Then we finally found one captain, and he said that he would take us around the island, but he wouldn't take us on the island because he said he was worried about his boat getting seized if he went to the island and things like that. But right at the last second, and funnily enough, we spent part of the day with the captain. So we went for lunch, and we were traveling around on the boat quite a bit. We were telling him about what we did, and he liked it a lot. He said a lot of the Caribbean, he said, they're all pirates there, and they have kind of a background of being like anarchists, like us. And he said that he really liked a lot of our ideas and stuff. And so I think he changed his mind at the last second, and he pulled up to the boat dock, and we didn't think he was going to let us get off because he said he wouldn't. And he said, guys, you have 5 seconds. If you're going to go right now. And so we just jumped off and went. And I didn't even have anything on because I only had 5 seconds to get ready, and we didn't think we were going to get on the island. So I had literally nothing. I had nothing but a swimsuit, and I grabbed my little selfie camera and ran for it.
Brilliant. My friend Jean Ann Crowley, the actress and journalist, great Irish lady, big fan of yours, Jeff, and was very impressed by this. But she said it has a lovely Enid Blyton-esque, kind of aspect to it. Captains telling you, I don't want to go on the island. And this is not a joke, by the way. I can understand why they wouldn't want to go on the island. But it sounds like one of those adventure novels we would have read when we were growing up. Now, has Epstein, you're across a lot of stories on the Dollar Vigilante podcast. DollarVigilante.com, folks, by the way. I know you know who Jeff is. If you're new to Jeff, check him out. You won't regret it. Very interesting content, always. So has Epstein and his story been on your radar anyway, Jeff?
Yeah, definitely. Not as much as Luke. Luke really covers that stuff. Of course, Luke is what you call a real journalist.
Yeah.
He that's really what he does. And he's been talking about Epstein for years before it was in the mainstream media and things like that. And so I was very well aware of it. And I knew that people like Bill Clinton had been going to his island like 20, 30 times. And people like Prince Andrew and all kinds of people. Even Donald Trump was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein and was very well known. I remember years ago, everyone talking about the Lolita Express, which was his plane, and they would go to Pedo Island where they'd have young kids mostly that they would actually rape essentially. And so this was well known for quite a while. But at the Dollar Vigilante, this isn't the sort of thing I cover regularly. I do cover that that this world is really controlled. At the top, the elite sort of people are incredibly satanic. They're incredibly evil. They love sacrifice. They love pedophilia. They like killing children. We've been saying this for a long time. This is quite well known. And so this Epstein sort of a thing was very important in many ways because it was actual real proof, real hard proof that so many of the people at the top were engaged in these sort of activities. So when Luke said he wanted to go, I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's see what we can find. Brilliant stuff, Jeff. And it's important to point out, just to remind people, this story kind of seems to be growing and growing and growing. This Epstein story, it won't go away. The UK press, to its credit for once, will not let go the investigation into the links between him and Prince Andrew, of course, which is very important. Fascinating to know. I've had Sean Atwood on the programme of late, another regular contributor to the show. Sean is all over this story, just like Luke and yourself. And he's fascinated by... He's been speaking with John Mark Dugan, the former Palm Beach County Sheriff Deputy, who is in Russia and who is believed to have video evidence of Epstein and some very famous people. I bet you'd love to see those videos, Jeff. And not because of any perversion or any perverse, kind of voyeurism. We'd love to know what's on those videos, wouldn't we? Yeah, like you've made a good point there. I don't really want to see a lot of what these guys do.
No.
I know what in general, like we've looked into this enough now. People like Mark Passio and Max Egan and David Icke especially, got to give him huge props. He's been talking about this for decades. And he's been proven right time after time after time that at the highest levels of these people, they're incredibly evil. They rape children, they kill children, all these sort of things. And so, no, I actually don't want to see those videos. In fact, if I heard they were available and I could see them, I'd ask someone to watch them for me. I'm that disgusted by what they do. But it is important that if we can get this information out there and really show people, because I think so many people still are very brainwashed. They go to the government schools. They watch their government programming, television programming, which is all CIA propaganda. They go to their movies, which is all CIA propaganda. And they just kind of don't fully believe that it could be this bad. And I don't know what it would take to convince a lot of people, because we already have so much evidence. But I guess, if we actually had video evidence of them actually doing these things, that would be hopefully enough. But then again, we do live in the world of deep fakes now. And so a lot of people would say, well, that was a fake video and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people will never wake up fully. I think that they don't want to wake up to the truth because the truth is kind of not great. It's kind of bad stuff. But at the same time, in my opinion, if you wake up to it and we break away from these systems and get rid of all of these governments, all these central banks, get rid of all of this evil stuff, the CIA and all that kind of stuff, we'll have a world of peace and prosperity like we've never known it. But we won't fully get there unless we can wake enough people up.
You've got me there with that comment about deep fake technology. That it did not occur to me. If you're a famous actor or actress, if you're a famous politician, it's your obvious excuse now, Jeff, isn't it? If you're found to be on videos, hey, it wasn't me. Listen, it wasn't me. Somebody is trying to get me. Somebody's trying to embarrass me. This is dreadful. I have been of late more optimistic about people, ordinary folks like myself in society, in communities. They are expressing more and more disquiet, discomfort about this stuff as it comes out. So I'm hopeful that this Epstein stuff just won't go away. The Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick, is live on the programme, folks. Check out his website, dollarvigilante.com, if you haven't before. Watch the podcast. They're exceptionally well produced and presented. Jeff, tell us about the island. What was the island like? What was going on? I mean, Luke was obviously taking control, I would imagine. What did you see there? What, if any, information could you get from your time there?
Probably the most interesting to me was just how easy it was to get on the island. We had all these ideas about how many security would be there. There might be CIA, there might be FBI people, there might be heavily armed private security. We had no idea what would be there. And, pulling up to the boat dock, there was no one there. And we just walked on and I was like, okay. As we walked through the island, we didn't see anyone for at least about half an hour. And of course, we were trying to be quiet and that sort of a thing, but there was really almost no sign of anyone there. As we walked through the island, we started to see a number of things, including things like the swimming pool and all the everything was manicured. Like, it looked like someone was definitely taking care of the island. So we were like, this is strange that we're not seeing anyone. But someone must be here because the island's very well taken care of. Yeah. So we walked up, and to me, one of the more interesting things was this huge sundial that I think is also a helicopter pad that was very interesting. All kinds of strange art, which is all quite sort of satanic looking, a lot of little demonic things with horns and things like that. For me personally, seeing the temple was pretty wild because we didn't think we were going to even get on the island. And then to be walking up to the temple, which is so sort of iconic now, was very bizarre. And seeing that there was no one around and we could just walk right up to it. And as a lot of people know from some drone footage, it's actually, a lot of it's just painted on. It looks like a cheap Hollywood set in many ways. And but there's some hard wood over some doors, some corrugated metal, and we couldn't get through that. And I saw some people on YouTube saying, "Why didn't you guys bring some tools and get in there?" It's like, well, we didn't even know we were going to be there. Of course, yeah. But I do say to other people, if you really are into this and you want to see what's going on, there doesn't appear to be a lot of security. Now, there might be more now, but there wasn't a ton of security on the island. It wasn't until quite a bit later that Luke and I split up because I didn't have any shoes. So, and a lot of the island is these little sharp rocks, and so I could barely walk on the island. I definitely couldn't run. So Luke split off to go get some video of other things, and I started walking back to the boat. And you can actually see in my video of it that I was saying, "Oh, there's no one here. It's eerily quiet." And then Luke comes running up behind me. He's like, "Run, run! There's people in golf carts."
Yeah, it's amazing.
And,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
I've just tweeted a link to your video. Yeah, it's fascinating watching it. I'm very interested in your description there of the satanic imagery, the little statues, the little busts. It's, you know, something many, many years ago when I was being told this for the first time by, you mentioned earlier on, David Icke, I used to think, well, yeah, maybe, yeah. But then, you know, you do enough research and you see that this imagery, satanic imagery, the costumes, I mean, I can just drop in Rothschild here, it's really important to them, isn't it, Jeff? This demonic stuff, like, you know, you don't decorate your apartments and your houses with this stuff unless it means something to you, because it's ugly shit, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The more you look into it, and you could just see by their actions that at the highest levels, and we're not even talking people like Donald Trump and things like that. To me, he's sort of like lower level, or even the Clintons, they're kind of lower level. We're talking like the Rothschilds and higher up type people, the people who really control most of the governments, they control the central banks. When you look at just a lot of the stuff that they do, and even just look at their actions, over the last 20th century, for example, all those wars, World War I, World War II, those were not natural things that happened. Those were caused by those same people. They love killing people. They love having people kill each other. You could just see by their actions that they like destroying this world. They like people to be completely controlled, completely enslaved, and completely confused about the truth. And all those things are kind of, in certain ways, kind of satanic. They want to destroy things. That's what they love, and they want to control and destroy everyone. And that's essentially what they've been doing through their actions for centuries now. So it isn't surprising at all to find out in more and more that we're finding out that they're very involved in child sex trafficking, these sort of things. And of course, we've heard about things like adrenochrome, about how they torture babies to get the babies get a huge burst of adrenaline into their blood. Then they take their blood and I don't know if they drink it or they inject it, but we've heard about these things for quite a while, and it's coming out more and more that that's what they're doing. And you look at people like the Queen, like, how is she even still alive? Like, they definitely have access to certain things, whether it might be drinking children's blood that's adrenalized, or even demonic sort of things where they're getting access to, like, I don't know how she's still alive.
Longevity, Jeff. Let me stay with that for a minute. That's very interesting, because many of my listeners for years have talked to me about the longevity of some of these people, and you've made a good point. The royal family are way above the food chain, or way up the trough, further away from the likes of Donald Trump and Tony Blair and Boris Johnson. They are. And the notion that some of these people, Kissinger, of course, has been hugely important, still is, Henry Kissinger, that their longevity is strange, and that maybe they're using exotic methods to keep themselves well and alive, like blood transfusions. You know, some years ago, we'd have wasted 10 minutes now with me interrupting you and arguing with you and saying you're a crazy bastard, Berwick. But, you know, yeah, I'm prepared to consider it. You know, I'm prepared to consider that. You mentioned a term. It's new to me, I have to say. I'm the first to admit when it's new to me. What was the term you used to describe the baby's adrenaline obviously being pumped up because of their fear and the blood being taken? What was that term you described?
It's called adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome.
ADRENO chrome.
And this is a method. And how do we know that this exists? Is it just speculation, or is there any proof that people are doing this?
I'm not an expert on it. I've just heard about it numerous times. It doesn't surprise me if it is true. Bringing up the longevity of some of these people. Kissinger, I don't know how he's still alive. I've seen him at Bilderberg's numerous times. They just wheel him in. It's like he's almost like he just never dies.
Never stops.
And, people like Rockefeller, he lived to 99 or 100 and something, and he looked like death for like decades, but he continued to stay alive. They're definitely, I think, at the higher levels, they have access to certain things that just keep them alive longer through various means. But I'm no expert on that kind of stuff. Probably David Icke and people like Max Egan and stuff like that know more.
Well, you and I, I mean, you had David at Anarchapulco, I believe, and I believe that was, as always, a fascinating conference. David Icke said to me many, many years ago that he believes that these people, or some of them, the reason they sexually assault children, prepubescent children, is because the fear gives off an energy that they're after. And that was very interesting to me. I dismissed it many years ago, but I was polite enough to listen to it at the time. There's a very interesting film in the cinemas at the moment. You'll be aware of this. It's called Dr. Sleep. It's based on Stephen King's sequel to The Shining. It stars Ewan McGregor. And Dr. Sleep is a book. Wait for it. In the book, there is a bunch of people chasing special children that are psychic. And they murder those children in horrific ways, because when the children die, they release an energy that the bad guys call steam, that they want to inhale. Isn't that incredible, Jeff? It's like art imitating life. We've heard people talk for years about people doing these things to children, and King writes about it, about these predatory people who prey on children to take their life essence while they are destroying them physically and sexually. So yeah, mate, there's definitely something into this, I believe.
Yeah, we always see that they put out some of the things they do in the Hollywood and things like that. Hollywood's incredibly controlled by the same people who control the world, and higher up people like Stephen King, who, when you get up that high and you're that well known and you've written that many things, you've had that many movies, you've made that much money, you have some sort of connections, in one way or another, to what you would call the Illuminati or whatever you want to call, these sort of control structures, and they're aware, probably, I'm sure, of some of these things that are being done. And I think to some extent they like to put it out in these fiction movies because I think they love it, because when you think about it, what they're doing, all this evil stuff, most people have no idea. And then they go to the movies and they look and they watch all this evil stuff happening. People are like, whoa, that's so terrible. Oh, thank God that was just a movie. And I think they just laugh. I think they're like, oh my God, these people are so stupid. We're really doing all this stuff, but we're showing it to them in a fiction format. And they think that it's just fiction when it's actually, a lot of it's quite real.
Right, we're going to leave this subject now because we've got the dollar vigilante on. I want to talk about money. I want to talk about crashes. Fascinating RT renegade program this week, Jeff, with the German economist who believes that we're heading for the mother of all financial meltdowns real soon. I'd love to get your thoughts. Before we do, there's a great question from the aforementioned Jean Ann Crowley, who's a great friend and a great contributor to this program. Jean Ann says, Richie, ask Jeff, does he give any credit to someone like Liz Crokin, who's been on the Richie Allen show on occasions in the past? Liz is sure that Donald Trump is trying to bring down the child trafficking rings himself, that there have been plenty of arrests seemingly among lower levels, but that the MSM is not reporting on it. So is Donald trying to bring all this down, and is he having some success at lower levels, but he's being ignored by the MSM? This is Liz Crokin's belief. What do you think, Jeff?
I disagree with that. I could be totally wrong, but I think Trump is an insider. If you look back at his history, his father was, a billionaire. He worked with the Bush family. They actually took down Tesla's technology. And then he's been good friends with the Clintons for decades. He was trained in a Jesuit school. He's a billionaire. He went bankrupt so many times, but kept getting money from the banks to keep going because he's such a terrible businessman. And then he he was put into professional wrestling to train him as a reality TV star actor to become president. And now he's president, and some people think, oh, he's a good guy. He's here to save us. Well, we're almost 4 years into it, and he has done absolutely nothing. Zero. And in fact, he's actually just continued on exactly what Barack drone bomber and George Bush and Bill Clinton have all been doing. There's been absolutely no change. He's actually gone into more debt than any other president in history, even though he campaigned on saying he was not only going to reduce the deficit to zero, but he's going to pay off the debt. He's actually increased the deficits, and we're going into massive amounts of debts. In fact, the U.S. just passed $23 trillion. So I could be totally wrong, but I see no evidence whatsoever that Trump is doing anything of any value or any good in any way.
Me neither. Just before we talk money, you mentioned Trump's billionaire parentage, and you mentioned Tesla. Do you want, for a lot of our listeners won't know anything about that. They hear about Tesla and free energy and how Tesla was screwed by the elites. How do you think Donald Trump's dad played a part in the downfall of Tesla, Nikola Tesla?
Well, actually, I haven't looked into that too much. There's so many things to look into in this world.
No, because I've heard it too. I'm not putting you on the spot. I've heard this too. That if we really look into that we'll find us. I'm not trying to put you on the spot there, but you've heard.
I would just say I'm sure other people know a lot more than me about it. I'm no expert on it, but from what I've looked into, it looks like it's quite true.
Yeah, fair enough. Jeff, the Dollar Vigilante is live on the Richie Allen Show. DollarVigilante.com. Jeff presents an Acapulco every year in Acapulco. It's hugely well attended and much liked and appreciated conference with some terrific speakers on so many different subjects, many of the subjects that we cover on this program. Now, Jeff, do you think that the stars are aligning? And I don't mean that this is, I'm not talking about astrology here, that movements are afoot or are abound to bring about a fairly serious crash by the end of the year. German economist Matthias Weich, who's got a book out, he was on RT Renegade, and he said the quantitative easing, the debt relief for countries in the Eurozone, Germany's own recession, which is, rearing its head, it's showing itself now, all points to huge problems later on this year. How are you reading that, Jeff?
Yeah, definitely. We're in the final days of this financial system, of this monetary system. I've been covering it since 2010. And interestingly enough, when I first started talking at the Dollar Vigilante in 2010 about how this entire system was going to collapse, I said it would probably happen by the end of this decade. And now we're in the last couple months here of this decade, and it's really started to happen. This repo market, the Fed has gone into QE4 now. We just had the U.S. government pass $23 trillion. When Barack drone bomber became president of the U.S. in 2008, it was $8 trillion. So the U.S. has almost tripled its debt in the last 10 years. It's more than tripled the money supply in the last 10 years. And now we're seeing things that are occurring that haven't happened since 2008. We've seen the yield curve invert, which usually only happens right before a crash. We've also seen the Federal Reserve go into the repo market, the overnight repo market, and have to supply liquidity because there isn't enough liquidity. The last time they did that was in 2008. And Morgan Stanley has even just come out and said in the last few weeks and said that this repo and QE5 or QE4, I can't even keep track of which one it is now, this can't just be temporary. This has to continue forever now. And they're actually right. If you want to keep the system alive at this point, they'll have to continue to print up money in the trillions of dollars just to keep it alive. And that will very quickly lead to hyperinflation. So we are in the last days, weeks, months, and maybe years. I can't see this going on more than 1 or 2 years more. In fact, 2 years seems, I would be shocked if we can get through 2 years without some sort of massive crisis. So we're in the final stages here, absolutely. And I've been talking about this quite a bit. In fact, I'm actually just trying to finish a book about this coming collapse right now, and I've been rushing. I'm literally this whole week is set aside to finish it because I'm like, I have to get this out before it actually happens, because putting out a book about the crash after it happens is kind of lame. And so yeah, no, we are absolutely all signs are pointing to we are near the end or some sort of a crisis or collapse, very similar to 2008, but much, much, much worse. And so many people have said it. I'm not the only one saying it. When you talk about this other person who said it, the IMF has said it, the World Bank has said it, every central banker has said it.
But aren't they the architects, Jeff? Sorry to interrupt you. It's interesting that you've been on it for years. To your credit, you have. It's interesting that the World Bank and the IMF are saying it. They're essentially the architects of it in terms of what it is they do, right? So they would know.
Yeah, in many ways they are. Even like that's the question: is some of this planned, or is it sort of by accident? I think it's more planned than by accident. But yeah, you have the central banks. You have the Dutch central bank just came out last week and said, when the crisis happens, we're ready. We've got some gold. We've had the Bank of England come out and say that there's going to be a massive crisis. It was actually Mervyn King, who was the ex-governor of the Bank of England, came out and said, we're on the cusp of financial Armageddon because of what's been going on. Because essentially what's happened is there's nothing's been fixed since 2008. They just printed up a lot more money. Instead of allowing things to collapse normally like a market would, and a lot of people would lose their jobs, which actually happened anyway, but even more would lose their jobs, and then people would have to rebuild again. Instead of doing that, they just printed up a ton of money, trillions of dollars, and they've been doing that ever since. And that causes more and more distortions and more leverage and more problems. And we're seeing now that a report just came out just last week saying 60% of banks in the world, if there's some sort of a financial problem, like a recession even, which is nothing, like that's normal, will go under. They're not even prepared. They're so highly leveraged right now with so much debt that even if we have a minor economic issue, that 60% of banks in the world will not be able to survive it. And I think that's an understatement. And I think there's no way we're just going to have a recession here. This is going to be worse than the 1929 depression. It's going to be way worse than 2008. And most people just have absolutely no idea.
So here's a few really important questions. So if so many banks go under and the central banks, the great central banks, if they refuse to capitalise the 60% of banks that go under, what does it mean for people? Because I will have listeners now, and I've got a lot of working class listeners. They might have a few thousand in the bank, Jeff, and that's all they have. These are smart people that go to work every day, both couples, both people working, mum and dad working. They're barely getting by every month, but they might have a couple of thousand in the bank just in case things go bad for them. And they believe their governments when their governments tell them that we guarantee your deposits up to a certain amount. Should they disbelieve that, Jeff? Should they ignore the pretense or I shouldn't say the pretense, should they ignore the assurances from their governments? Don't worry, if your bank goes bust, we will give you back that money. Should they believe that?
Never believe anything the government tells you. But even if that were to happen, so if you have the banks that are all going to go under, this sort of happened in 2008 already. So if you have this situation where it looks like everything's going to collapse, and then the Federal Reserve or the central bank comes in and prints up a ton more money, it will actually just cause the money to go into hyperinflation at this point. So your bank might survive and the money in the bank might survive, but it might be your 2,000 euros or pounds or whatever you have there. Our dollars might be enough to buy you some food at McDonald's at that point. So one way or another, if you've got your savings in fiat currencies like the dollar or the pound, and you're holding it at a bank, you're a huge risk taker at this moment in time. That's incredibly risky to do. One way or another, either the bank's going to close, you're going to lose your money, or it's going to go into hyperinflation, the money's going to be worthless. Those are the two options. There's no other option at this point. This is the rock and the hard place that I've been talking about for a few years now, that there's just no way out of this. So if people do have some savings out there, the very last place you should have it is in a bank. What you should be looking at, if you want to be incredibly safe and also have incredible chance for rewards, I would go into precious metals. Gold and silver right now are unbelievably good value, especially silver. I think silver can go up 5 times easily in the next year or so. And the downside for silver, in my opinion, is almost zero. I think there's almost no chance it can go any lower in value right now. It's around $16 or $17 right now. So for people who want to be incredibly safe, I would go into precious metals to make sure that you can survive through with your savings through what's going to happen. And then, of course, if you want to take risks and there's a lot more volatility and a lot more risk, but also potentially higher reward is things like cryptocurrencies. But if what you're looking for is safety, definitely look at precious metals right now.
Precious metals, yeah. Thanks. Jeff Berwick is our guest. The Dollar Vigilante, dollarvigilante.com. Listeners are asking in their droves, how bad will things get for people on a day-to-day level when this crash comes? How bad will it be? Will things not be available in shops? You hinted already things might be available, but hyperinflation might make them, beyond the reach of people. How bad will we have toilet paper in the shops, for example? What will happen, Jeff?
There's no way to know. But if we do go towards a hyperinflation, you could just look at other countries and look at how that goes. Venezuela has been the most recent hyperinflation in the world over the last few years. And I was there a couple of years ago. And yeah, there's really nothing in the shops. Everything's closed, that sort of a thing. It can get that bad. In fact, in 2008, when we had the financial crisis, there was a few days where food transportation, because most food in the world, unfortunately, comes from very far away on tankers and things like that to go to places like Walmart. And because of the financial crisis, all the shippers stopped shipping because they didn't know which banks were actually solvent. So when the shippers are going to ship a large tanker, they get a bank credit letter from the Walmart in the U.S. And at that moment in time, they didn't know if that bank was going to survive or not, so they stopped shipping. For a couple of days that happened. If it would have went on for a few more days, pretty much every Walmart, every grocery store in the U.S. would be quickly running out of food within a few days because of how the systems are today. So that is a definite risk. That is a possibility. There's so many possibilities, but I like to say also that not to worry too much about these things. Like fear is one of the biggest killers in the world. There's no reason to fear. This is going to be uncomfortable for many people. A lot of people could lose a lot of money if they're not smart. And if you're listening to what I'm saying right now, then you probably won't lose all your money. So that's good. Just be, careful. Maybe have a garden. I think everyone should have a garden anyway. I think growing your own food is one of the most important things for your own health, and also just for having the ability to have your own food supply is incredibly important in my opinion. So, if you don't have a garden, go start a garden so you have some food. And there might be some periods where there's going to be some chaos and a lot of problems. But if you've got precious metals and a way to protect yourself is probably good as well, because some people might get a little crazy, and you can grow your own food. And especially, I'd say don't live in major population areas like New York City or LA during the next few years. I think it could get really bad. But if you're prepared for it, there's really nothing to fear. In fact, if you actually go into things like precious metals and maybe some cryptocurrencies, and you survive through this, you will have opportunities like you could never imagine, because 95% of people in the world will be wiped out. They'll have no assets. Everything will be pennies on the dollar. And if you've got assets like precious metals, you'll be able to go in and buy hotels. Or there's an old story from the Weimar Republic in Germany during a hyperinflation there in the early 1900s, and it said, I don't know if it's true or not, but I wouldn't doubt if it was true.
Let me ask
that one person had one gold coin and they were able to buy up an entire hotel chain with it.
Wow, Jeff. There's loads of questions coming in. Jeff is going to stay with us for another 10 minutes. Thanks for your time today, Jeff. dollarvigilante.com, folks. In Acapulco at the conference. If it weren't so far away, Jeff, from the UK, for me, it'd be something I'd love to attend as an interested spectator, maybe someday in the future. Now listen, loads of questions. John Parsons, Salford. We've got a question from Ricky. We've got a question from Sooty's Rehab. Love these Twitter handles. John says, where does a man or a woman for that matter go to buy precious metals? Where, Jeff? Where do we do it?
Well, it's funny that that's a question. And that goes to show that over the last few decades and even a century, the media and the government have really made it so your average person has no idea even how to get gold or silver. And that's on purpose. I don't know where this person lives, and so every country has different places.
So
usually there's some sort of precious metals stores, or you go to the mint and things like that. But I will say I'm here in Mexico right now, and I've been trying to buy gold and silver coins, and there's been none available here in Mexico. And Mexico is the largest silver producer in the world, and I can't find any silver coins to buy.
Why is that, Jeff? Do you know?
I think a number of reasons, but I think it's supply and demand. I think there's so much demand and there's just not enough supply. I think a lot of people are waking up. A lot of people are realizing they should be getting into precious metals, and they're buying them up. And here in Mexico, I can't find any to buy right now. So that's a little bit of a warning to people. That could happen in other places too, especially as this crisis starts to continue and really start to happen. You will find times, in my opinion, where you won't be able to buy precious metals and for pounds or dollars. It'll be impossible. No one will be selling at that point. So, just look into your local area and find out. There's usually precious metal shops almost anywhere in the world. So you just have to look into your local area. There's also lots of online places. If you're in the U.S., there's one I really like. I would just go to dollarvigilante.com/gold silver. It's run by Mike Maloney. They actually do ship internationally. But there's all kinds of rules and taxes and all these sort of things on international shipping. But I believe if that person's in the UK, they could actually order from Gold Silver and ship it. And I think the rule is in the UK, and this is a funny rule, that if it's got a picture of the Queen on the gold coin, there's no tax on it. But if it doesn't have a picture of the Queen on it, then they tax it like 10 or 20% or something like that.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, the US actor William Devane, famous for playing the president in one series of 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. He's running some ads on behalf of a company here in the UK. They're selling gold coins. I keep seeing the ad and I keep watching it and I keep thinking, no, I don't have thousands. I wish I did. But the little few savings I do have, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe. But then I worry about storage and all the rest of it. Jeff Berwick is our guest, the Dollar Vigilante, live on the line from Acapulco. Check him out if you haven't before. Check out the podcast. Let me... by the way, as Jeff was talking there, a number of our listeners have tweeted links to where people can get gold in the UK. So thanks to that. Huge interest in this on Twitter. Always is when Jeff is on the line. It's been too long, Jeff. We'll have to have you back sooner than you have been. It's great to have you on. Ricky tweets, I read somewhere, says Ricky, they want the crash, they with a capital T, to implement the cashless society, because then you'll have negative interest rates charging you on your own money. With no cash, you must then rely on, and you must have a bank account. This is a big thing, Jeff. You've talked about this for years. One of the things the cashless society will make easier, it will make it easier for them to implement a social crediting system, won't it, Jeff? Hey, Jeff, you've been saying some naughty things on Twitter about transgender people. We're going to switch off your access to your bank. No, I know you haven't, Jeff. I'm just hypothesizing a situation here. I do all the time. Richie, so it's Richie. You're saying nasty things about trans people, even though I don't. So we're going to limit your access to your money. You've predicted this, Jeff. This is serious stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a long-term plan, and the end goal of it is to collapse everything and have everyone so destitute that they'll accept a one-world sort of government, a one-world taxation system, and a one-world sort of digital currency, which will have to be held in banks that will be at negative interest rates. So, like I said, these people, they want to destroy everything. They want everyone poor, and they want to rule the entire world and have everyone as much poverty and as possible. And so this is a big part of the plan. So we actually see now with negative interest rates in so many parts of the world, a lot of places in Europe actually have negative interest rates now, which I didn't even think was possible. And of course, and we see so many central bankers talking about this, and this is obvious. They're like, well, I don't think people are going to put their money in the bank if they have to pay to keep the money in the bank. And they're like, okay, so we have to get rid of the currency, the paper currency, and make it digital, so they actually have to keep it in the bank. So that is actually part of the plan right now. And this is a big reason why owning things like precious metals and cryptocurrencies is so important, because cryptocurrencies actually enable you to not only have your own money, which is not controlled by them, that they cannot seize whatsoever. They cannot stop you from transacting with it. But you also are your own bank. So you actually hold, for the first time ever, this is why cryptocurrency is so amazing. For the first time ever, person can not only have their own money, but also be their own bank. And cryptocurrencies are incredibly easy to transfer around. So for a lot of people out there, that's the option right now. Is if everyone went towards cryptocurrencies and held their savings in things like precious metals, this whole system would collapse, and it's going to collapse anyway. But we'd already be moving on to a new system. We'd already be able to transfer and transact and do commerce amongst each other very easily with cryptocurrencies, and a lot of people would save a lot of their savings through precious metals. So a lot of this is up to people to do, and if you do it now, it's actually a lot better because it makes it so a lot more people will survive through this crisis and will be able to move on to a much better world a lot faster. Whereas if no one does it, everyone's going to get wiped out, and then the so-called elites and the people who control the world will have a much easier time controlling and enslaving all of us.
Good stuff, Jeff. Stutty's Rehab, who I mentioned earlier, did say that he thinks in the UK silver comes with a 20% VAT charge, that's value-added tax, at purchase and at sale. So if that's true, maybe you might want to think a little harder about silver. I don't know, but I suppose no matter what you do, there is such charges do exist, and they are applied anyway, aren't they, Jeff? All the time. So nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, that's the government. They're doing everything they can to steal from you in every single way, and that includes on precious metals and things like that. But I would say, silver. If you keep all your money in a bank, in 5 years from now, you're not going to have anything. So if, paying a 20% extortion fee to the government right now to buy some silver, it's probably going to go up in value 5, 10, 20 times in the next few years. And hopefully by the end of it, there's no government or central bank left to tax you. That's my hope. And so you'll be okay in that sense. So I would, even though, there's going to be that extortion cost, they're going to steal some of your money but for doing it, I would still consider it for sure.
Good stuff, Jeff. We had questions about cryptocurrency earlier on from listeners. I think you've talked about cryptocurrency. You've spoken about it there at length. So just before we do run out of time, final couple of minutes, you've had some success with Anarchapulco in recent years. It's not that old as an event. Without looking at Wikipedia now, I reckon you started it around about 2014 or 2015, Jeff. I can't remember. It's around about that. You're coming up on anniversary 5 or 6, or have you already had anniversary 5?
This will be our 6th event, so
wow,
I think
Jeff.
That means the first one was 2014.
Fantastic. And what about this coming spring? Well, it's late winter, early spring. What's happening with Anarchapulco? Do you know who you've got coming to talk? Should people be looking at getting tickets now? Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's coming up February 13th to 16th. Last year we had David Icke. He actually said he's considering coming again next year, but he's so busy with all his new books and stuff that he said he'll let us know later. But he's the kind of person that we have speaking at Anarchapulco. Other people that are similar, people like Max Egan, he'll be back in 2013. We have Ron Paul speaking. Brilliant. He spoke the last few Anarchapulcos. We have John McAfee, he's very well known in the crypto world. Doug Casey. Very excited about that. We have people like Freeway Rick Ross. He was one of the biggest sort of drug dealers in the U.S. And actually got himself out of prison. People like Del Bigtree. He did the movie Vaxxed, very sort of anti-vaccine sort of stuff. People like James Corbett, who does excellent work along the lines of Luke Rudkowski and Dan Dix of Press for Truth. They all will be at Anarchapulco. So a lot of the sort of the truth media people will be there. And I could go on and on. There's so many great people at Anarchapulco.
Brilliant. And you would recommend that people go to $vigilante.com as a starting point for the information? Or do you want to use is there another way? Do you want to use the Anarchapulco website for it?
Yeah, the easiest way is just go to anarchapulco.com to get tickets. We're expecting about 3,000 people in 2020, which is the maximum we can hold. We're well on our way to being there already. So if you do want to go, definitely check it out soon. We also have booked the entire hotel. We bought it out the whole hotel. So it's 1,000 rooms on the beach in beautiful Acapulco, which in Mexico, which isn't what they tell you it is on the media, on the mainstream fake news. It's not a dangerous place. It's actually one of the most beautiful places in the world, and you can still get rooms. So if you sign up quick, you just go to the website and click on hotels and you can get rooms, but the rooms are selling out very quick.
You're killing me, Jeff, with all that talk of hotels and beaches. You're killing me. In Salford, in Manchester, in November. It's grim out there, my friend. It's grim. Listen, thanks for sharing your time with us again today. Congratulations on that expedition to the Epstein Island. It was very interesting there. Regards to Luke Rudkowski who's a good guy. I interviewed Luke a couple of times over the years, met him in London when we were putting together a TV show there. He's a good guy, Luke. Very intense guy, but a very good guy and a smart guy as well. $vigilante.com and arcopolco.com. Jeff, you're a gent. I hope we might catch up with you, if not before Christmas, certainly before an Acapulco in February. Come back on the programme in a very early new year. You're a gentleman. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Richie. Always a pleasure.
Brilliant stuff, Jeff. Thank you. The terrific Jeff Berwick live on the Richie Allen Show, Monday, November 4th, 2019. Top man is Jeff, $vigilante.com. Who came on to tell us? Was it Trevor? Trevor the Mule says there is no VAT on gold, no VAT, says Trevor. Whenever I hear VAT, I think only fools and horses. And the song written by John Sullivan. But yeah, interesting stuff that. And money. I remember a few years ago, the French footballer turned poet turned actor Eric Cantona, who's a very good actor, by the way. We've watched one or two of his French films over the years, and he's a great screen presence. Very good guy, Eric. Very good actor. He proposed a run on the banks, didn't he, some years ago in France. Eric is fairly awake and pissed off by the recapitalising of the banks, by the bank bailouts, was Eric, like everybody should be. I remember talking back in the day about bailing out the people. Bailing out the banks, criminals, traitors, casino bankers, committing financial crimes, ruining people's livelihoods, bailing them out. Why not bail the people out and make the banks, well, let them dissolve and let new banks come up and change the whole system. Don't let them create money out of thin air and all the rest of it. But anyway, yeah, very interesting stuff. 7.5 minutes it is to the top of the hour. Thanks for all the comments there coming in there. I really appreciate that. And if Joanne Boddington is listening, Joanne, how you doing, by the way? Joanne is a musician of repute. She's based in Chorlton. Long-time listener to the programme. Often takes issue with things that I say, but that's no bad thing at all. And Joanna's got animals, and she's recommended a couple of remedies for my dog and my friend Jazz, who's not doing well. And during this programme, by the way, the fireworks have been going off again in the neighbourhood, and it is very loud. And no doubt, when I finish up in a couple of minutes' time and I throw the door to the studio open, poor Jazz will come running to me trembling and in a bad way. Firework users, bastards all. Bastards all. Use them on bonfire night. Use them occasionally for celebrations like weddings. Use them on New Year's Eve. But the rest of the time, stick them up your fucking arses. I've had enough of it now. So I have. That's my little outburst there. Yeah. Anyway. Marvellous. Yeah. Right, so it's going to be a good week. Jim Fetzer tomorrow. Sandy Hook. You know, Jim lost his defamation case. He was ordered to pay Lenny Posner nearly $500,000. Jim has appealed it. And he wasn't happy with the way the case went. He wasn't happy with the fact that he wasn't able to present a defence. In other words, well, this is why I have said the things I have said. This is why I have accused Lenny Posner of being a fake. This is why I believe that nobody died at Sandy Hook. You need to give me a chance to at least make my case. And Jim believes passionately that he didn't get that chance. And he wasn't allowed to present experts. Kevin Barrett was at the sentencing phase of the case and spoke to me about it last Tuesday on the radio show. And Jim listened to it and he wants to come on, but he was invited on anyway. I asked Jim to come back on after the case had concluded. I don't think Jim was thrilled about some of the things that we said, but that's fine. He'll get his chance tomorrow to make his case on the Richie Allen Show. I love Jim. I've been a fan of his for many, many, many years. But I believe, and he might be listening to this, that while there is a lot of substance in a lot of what Jim has said about the school and the anomalies and the building and the children being declared dead, I have a lot of sympathy for a lot of Jim's arguments. I'm not convinced that nobody died there. And his book didn't convince me. And Jim can like that or lump it. Well, we'll get into it tomorrow. Anyway, in a robust way, which we always do. In a respectful and robust way. I love Jim, as I said. But book was compelling. Taken off sale by Amazon, of course, by Google as well. Compelling, interesting, and thought-provoking. But it didn't convince me that nobody died there. That's all I'm saying. Right? That is my want. That is my right. 4 minutes it is now to the end of the show. Right. Yeah, so tomorrow morning then we'll do the paper review. That is YouTube, of course. That is YouTube tomorrow. It's a pile of shite, but some of you like it. And it gives me a chance to read the papers with you and have a few laughs as well. Back with you tomorrow at 9:30 on YouTube. The Richie Allen Radio Show tomorrow at 5. Thanks for listening. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. The rest of your Monday evening. Stay safe. Hasta mañana.